The small countryside village of Seryuni was the kind of place where time seemed to slow down. Rice fields stretched endlessly, their golden stalks swaying under the afternoon wind. Life was simple here. Children played barefoot in the dirt, roosters crowed at dawn, and old women traded stories while weaving mats. For most, it was a peaceful place. But for Aga and Naya, the village was more than just home. It was where their childhood dreams blossomed, and where something unexplainable began to haunt them. Aga was the restless one. He always wanted to see the world beyond the hills, always curious about what lay outside the borders of Seryuni. Naya, on the other hand, was calm, thoughtful, the type who found joy in routine. Yet despite their differences, they were inseparable. They studied together, laughed together, even shared their secret fears under the old tamarind tree at the village square. To the villagers, they were like two halves of the same coin. But children grow, and curiosity often leads to dangerous places. There was an old abandoned house at the edge of the village, hidden behind a row of withered banyan trees. No one lived there, not for decades. The elders whispered that the house had once belonged to a wealthy family who vanished mysteriously in a single night. Some said they were cursed. Others claimed they had been taken away by unseen forces. Whatever the truth was, the villagers avoided the house. They said that after sunset, shadows lingered longer there, and the air grew heavy as if time itself was trapped inside. For years, Aga and Naya listened to the stories with wide eyes. At first, they promised never to go near the house. But as teenagers, curiosity outweighed fear. One evening, under a crimson sky, Aga turned to Naya with a mischievous grin. "Let's go," he whispered. Naya frowned. "Go where?" "You know where. The old house. Everyone's too scared, but we're not kids anymore. Let's prove it." Naya hesitated. Her heart pounded just at the thought, but when Aga reached out his hand, she couldn't say no. That was how it always was. Aga led, Naya followed. And so, they walked together down the narrow dirt path, the sound of cicadas growing louder as twilight deepened. When they reached the house, the first thing they noticed was the silence. The fields behind them still hummed with crickets and frogs, but here, everything was unnervingly quiet. The house itself was a skeleton of wood and stone, its roof sagging, its windows shattered like hollow eyes. A single wooden door creaked in the wind. Aga pushed it open. The sound echoed like a scream. Inside, the air was damp, smelling of mold and something older, something sour. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like curtains. The floorboards groaned under their steps. Naya gripped Aga's hand tightly. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. Aga squeezed her hand. "It's just a house." But it wasn't just a house. In the center of the living room stood an old grandfather clock. Its wood was cracked, its glass covered in dust. Yet the clock ticked. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The sound was unnaturally loud, filling the silence like a heartbeat. Naya froze. "Aga, the hands. They're not moving." Aga looked closer. She was right. The clock's hands were frozen at midnight, but still, it ticked. Louder, louder, and then, whisper. It was faint, like the rustling of leaves, but the words were clear. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. Both of them turned pale. Did you hear that?" Naya stammered. Aga swallowed hard. "It's just the wind." But his voice trembled. The whisper came again, this time stronger, echoing through the empty halls. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. The air grew colder. Naya's breath fogged in front of her. Somewhere in the shadows, something shifted, like a figure moving just out of sight. "Aga, we need to leave," Naya pleaded, tears forming in her eyes. But before they could turn, the clock struck once. Boom. The sound was deafening. Even though the hands never moved, it rang as if midnight had come again. In that instant, Aga saw something, or someone, standing in the corner of the room. A shadow tall and twisted, with eyes like hollow wells. He blinked, and it was gone. Without another word, they ran. Out the door, down the path, back into the comforting noise of the night. Only when they reached the tamarind tree did they stop, gasping for air. Neither spoke of what they had heard. Neither wanted to. But the words lingered in their minds, carved deep into their memory. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. The years passed. Aga left the village to study in the city, chasing the future he always dreamed of. Naya stayed behind, helping her family, watching seasons change without him. They promised to keep in touch, to meet again, to never forget. But life was unkind. Calls grew shorter, then stopped. Letters went unanswered. And slowly, distance turned their bond into silence. Yet sometimes, late at night, when Naya lay awake in her room, she would hear it again, the whisper from the shadows. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. And every time she heard it, she wondered if it was a curse, if that night in the abandoned house had tied them to something they could never escape. 10 years had passed since that night in the abandoned house, but to Naya, it still felt like yesterday. The whispers, the clock that ticked without moving, the figure in the corner, it all haunted her in dreams that returned again and again. Aga, meanwhile, had vanished into the city life he longed for. 4 years, there was no word. No calls. No letters. At first, Naya told herself he was just busy, that someday he would return. But deep down, she feared the truth. Perhaps time itself had torn them apart, just as the whisper had foretold. Then one rainy evening, as Naya walked home from the market with an umbrella trembling in her hands, she saw him. Aga. He stood at the edge of the village road, drenched in rain, a suitcase by his side. His face was older, sharper, but his eyes, those restless eyes, were still the same. For a moment, Naya froze. Her heart wanted to run to him, but her legs felt heavy, as though the years had chained her in place. Aga, she whispered. He looked up, and for the first time in years, he smiled. Naya. The sound of her name from his lips broke the silence. Before she could stop herself, she dropped the umbrella and ran to him. Rain soaked them both, but neither cared. They embraced under the storm, their hearts beating faster than the thunder overhead. But even in that moment of reunion, Naya noticed something. Aga's skin was cold. Too cold, like he had been standing in winter instead of rain. She shivered but said nothing. That night, the village buzzed with gossip. Aga had returned, they said, after vanishing for a decade. Some were happy, others suspicious. Where had he gone? Why had he come back now? Aga himself gave few answers. He told Naya only that he had been lost in the city, chasing dreams that turned to ash. His business failed, friends disappeared, and loneliness finally drove him back to Seryuni. But there were things he didn't say. At night, in the small room where he stayed, Aga would wake drenched in sweat. The whispers had followed him, through crowded streets, in empty apartments, even in his sleep. Always the same words. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. Sometimes, he swore he heard the faint ticking of a clock, even when no clock was near. And sometimes, when he looked in the mirror, he thought he saw a shadow standing behind him, too tall, too twisted to be his own. For a while, Naya and Aga tried to reclaim what they had lost. They walked together through the rice fields, laughed under the tamarind tree, even cooked meals as they once did when they were young. On the surface, it was almost as if nothing had changed, but time had left scars. There were moments when Aga would fall silent mid-conversation, his eyes fixed on something only he could see. Once, Naya found him in the middle of the night standing outside the old abandoned house, staring at it with a vacant expression. When she shook him awake, he claimed not to remember how he got there. Aga, you're scaring me, Naya admitted one evening. He forced a smile. I'm fine. Sometimes I feel like time stopped for me in that house. Like I never truly left. Naya's chest tightened. Maybe we shouldn't have gone there. Maybe. Her voice cracked. She wanted to say, maybe the curse followed us, but the words felt too heavy. It wasn't long before strange things began happening in the village. Children spoke of seeing a tall figure near the banyan trees. Chickens were found dead with no wounds, their bodies cold as ice. At night, villagers heard the faint sound of a clock ticking, even when no clock was present. Then came the first disappearance. A young man named Dharma failed to return home one night. His friends swore they last saw him near the path to the old house. A search party found nothing. Only his shoes, placed neatly in front of the wooden door. The elders gathered and whispered among themselves. Some blamed wandering spirits. Others said the house had awakened again, feeding on the passing years. Naya knew in her heart it had to do with the curse. And perhaps, with Aga's return. One night, unable to hold it in, Naya confronted him. "You need to tell me the truth," she demanded, her eyes blazing with fear and anger. "What happened in the city? Why do you keep hearing things? Why are people disappearing now that you're back?" Aga's face paled. His lips trembled, as though the truth was a weight too heavy to carry. I tried to forget," he whispered. "I thought leaving the village would break the curse. But I was wrong. It followed me everywhere. The whispers, the ticking clock, the shadow. Naya, it never left. It wants something. And I think it's tied to us." Naya's blood ran cold. "Tied how?" Aga's eyes glistened. "That night, when we entered the house, we weren't just visitors. We awakened something. A bargain, maybe. A debt. It doesn't want our love, it wants our time." At that moment, as if mocking his words, the faint sound of a clock echoed in the silence. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Both of them froze. The sound was coming from inside the room. Slowly, they turned. In the corner stood a grandfather clock. But Naya knew that clock didn't belong to her. The hands were frozen at midnight. And yet, it ticked. That night, Naya barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the shadow of the clock looming over her. When dawn came, she found Aga already awake, sitting outside under the tamarind tree, his face pale with exhaustion. "Do you ever think," he murmured, "that we were never meant to be? That time itself is against us." Naya sat beside him. Her heart ached at his words. "It's not love that failed," she said softly, repeating the curse they had both heard years ago. "It's time." Aga's eyes filled with sorrow. "Then maybe the only way to stop it is to face it. To end what we started." He looked toward the abandoned house. And for the first time in years, Naya realized they might have no choice but to return. The abandoned house in Sayuni had not changed in 10 years. Its wooden walls were still blackened with rot, the roof sagged as though it bore the weight of centuries, and the broken windows seemed like empty eyes watching anyone who dared approach. For the villagers, it was a place avoided at all costs. Even in broad daylight, no one passed near its path. Children were warned never to play close. Some elders muttered prayers every time they walked by, just in case the time curse still lingered there. But for Naya and Aga, returning was no longer a matter of choice. It was necessity. The night before, when the phantom grandfather clock appeared in Naya's house, they both knew the whispers were calling them back. "This ends where it began," Aga said grimly as he packed a lantern and matches into a small bag. His hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. Naya wanted to stop him, to plead with him not to go. But deep down she felt it too. Unless they faced the house, the curse would keep spreading. Villagers would keep vanishing. And sooner or later, time itself would claim them both. The night was heavy with mist when they set out. The moon, swollen and pale, hid behind clouds, casting the world in grey shadows. Crickets fell silent as they walked, as if the very earth held its breath. When the house came into view, Naya's chest tightened. 10 years ago, she had stood on this same path, her heart full of youthful love and reckless curiosity. Tonight, her heart was full of dread. "Do you hear that?" Aga whispered. At first, Naya thought it was just the wind. But then she heard it. Faint, rhythmic. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The sound came not from the house itself, but from the air around them, as if the night sky had become one giant clock. Aga gritted his teeth. It's waiting. They stepped inside. The interior was worse than they remembered. Dust lay thick across the floorboards. Cobwebs draped from the ceiling beams like torn curtains. The smell of damp wood and decay clung to the air. Yet everything felt alive. Naya's lantern flickered, casting shadows that moved in ways they shouldn't. Every corner seemed deeper than it was, every hallway longer, every doorway darker. The whispers returned almost at once. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. The voices layered over each other, some high, some low, some almost childlike. They came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Naya clutched Aga's arm. It knows we're here. Before Aga could reply, the lantern dimmed and went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. Then, a light appeared. Not from the lantern, but from the far end of the hallway. It was pale and cold, glowing like moonlight through water. Slowly, it formed into the shape of a door. But there had never been a door there before. Aga swallowed hard. We follow it. They walked down the hall, each step echoing louder than it should. As they neared, the door creaked open by itself. Inside was not another room of the house, but something else entirely. A chamber that seemed suspended in darkness, its walls lined with clocks of every shape and size. Grandfather clocks, pocket watches, wristwatches, pendulum clocks, all frozen at midnight. Yet all ticking at once. The sound was deafening. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Naya covered her ears, but it didn't help. The ticking wasn't just sound, it was inside her head, vibrating through her bones. What is this place? She cried. Aga's face was pale, his eyes wide. It's the heart of it. The thing that bound us 10 years ago. As if in response, the clocks began to shift. Their hands twitched, their pendulums swung. Some cracked open, revealing not gears but eyes. Dark, unblinking, watching. From the center of the chamber rose a figure. It was tall, draped in shadows, its body shifting like smoke. Its face was hidden behind the mask of a clock, its hands frozen at 12. When it spoke, its voice was layered with countless others, male and female, old and young. You returned. Naya's knees nearly buckled. What do you want from us? The figure tilted its clock face head. Not love. Never love. Love is fragile, fleeting. What I take is time. And yours is owed. Aga stepped forward, fists clenched. Take mine then. Leave her out of this. The figure's laughter was like the grinding of gears. Brave. Foolish. Your time is already claimed. Both of yours are entwined. What one loses, the other loses too. That is the bond you forged when you entered this place as children of love and fools of curiosity. Naya shook her head violently. No. That can't be true. We didn't agree to this. The figure loomed closer. The ticking grew louder. You crossed the threshold. You awoke me. You heard the whisper and stayed. That was your consent. The room spun. Naya felt the weight of years pressing down on her shoulders, as if her youth was being stripped away second by second. She grabbed Aga's hand desperately. His skin was ice cold again. We have to fight it, she whispered. But Aga's eyes were distant, as though already fading. Maybe this is the price, Naya. Maybe we were never meant to escape it. The clocks began to chime all at once. Midnight bells that shook the chamber. The figure raised a hand, and the clock's hands spun wildly, years flashing by in seconds. Naya saw herself in their glass faces. Aged, withered, gone. She screamed. No. Summoning every ounce of will, she pulled Aga toward her. We don't belong to you. Time belongs to us. For the briefest instant, the ticking faltered. The figure tilted its head, as though intrigued. Arga blinked, his eyes clearing. He squeezed Naya's hand. She's right. We may not stop you, but we can defy you. The clocks shuddered. The room cracked with the sound of splintering wood and glass. Shadows writhed. The figure let out a scream that wasn't a scream but the shriek of 1,000 clocks breaking at once. And then, silence. When Naya opened her eyes, she was lying on the floor of the abandoned house. The lantern beside her glowed faintly. The chamber of clocks was gone. The whispers had vanished. Beside her, Arga stirred, groaning. He looked alive. Normal. For a moment, relief washed over her. But then she noticed the streak of silver in his hair, and the lines at the corner of his eyes that hadn't been there before. The curse hadn't taken their lives, but it had taken something. Time. And somehow, Naya knew this wasn't the end. The house had awakened, and it would not rest again so easily. The next morning, Sayuni village awoke to silence. Not the gentle silence of dawn, but a silence that weighed heavy on the air. Roosters did not crow. Dogs did not bark. The marketplace, usually bustling with voices of sellers and buyers, lay eerily still. Naya walked through the narrow streets with Arga by her side. Every step echoed too loudly, like sound carried in an empty cavern. Something was wrong. Very wrong. At the well near the square, an old woman's basket of vegetables lay overturned, the water rope dangling, swinging gently as if someone had just let go. But there was no one there. Where is everyone? Naya whispered. Arga bent down, picking up a tomato from the ground. It was fresh, unbruised, as though it had only fallen seconds ago. He looked around, jaw tight. They were here. But now, gone. The words struck like a knife. Gone. Not dead, gone. As they wandered deeper, the signs multiplied. A cart stood abandoned, its ox still tethered but eerily calm. Laundry hung stiffly from clotheslines, swaying in the wind. A child's toy lay in the dirt road, its owner nowhere in sight. Everywhere they looked, there were traces of life, yet no life itself. The whispers began again, soft at first. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. Naya pressed her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. The voices weren't outside, they were inside. Stop it, she shouted. But the air only grew colder. That night, the disappearances spread. Families vanished without a sound. Entire rows of houses stood empty by morning. Even the animals began to fade. The ox in the square was gone, leaving its cart behind. Chickens disappeared from their coops. Dogs from their yards. Sayuni was being erased. Arga stood in the middle of the street, staring at the darkened houses. His shoulders sagged, as though the weight of the whole curse pressed on him. It's the house. It's not content with us anymore. It's feeding. Naya felt a chill seep into her bones. Feeding on what? He looked at her, eyes shadowed. Time. It's swallowing everyone's time, one by one. On the third day, Naya's neighbor, Marta, who used to bring her herbs when she was sick, was gone. Only her scarf lay on the doorstep, fluttering in the breeze. Naya held the fabric tightly, tears burning her eyes. We can't just stand here, Arga. If we don't stop it, there will be no one left. Arga rubbed his temple, exhaustion lining his face. I know, but how? We faced it. We defied it. And yet, his words broke off. From the corner of his eye, he saw movement. A shadow flitted across the street, too quick to be human. They both froze. The shadow paused at the end of the lane, taking form. It was tall, cloaked in darkness, its face still the clock mask with frozen hands. But now it was not confined to the house. It had come into the village. The ticking followed. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Naya's breath caught. It's hunting. That night, they locked themselves in Naya's house. Every candle was lit. Every prayer whispered. Yet the ticking seeped through the walls, louder with each passing hour. At midnight, the door rattled. The candles flickered out. And then came the silence. When Naya opened her eyes, the house was unchanged. She was still holding Aga's hand. Relief swept through her, until she noticed the empty chair across the room. Her aunt had been sitting there, clutching her rosary. Now only the rosary remained, lying on the floor. Naya screamed. The curse had taken her too. Desperation grew. By the 5th day, the once bustling Seryuni was nearly empty. The marketplace was dust and silence. The schoolyard, once filled with children's laughter, stood barren. Even the temple bell no longer rang, its caretaker gone without trace. Naya and Aga were among the last. "This isn't random," Aga muttered as they studied the empty streets. "It's happening in circles. Like ripples." Naya frowned. Ripples. He pointed toward the distant outline of the abandoned house. Even from here, its silhouette loomed larger, darker, as though it had grown. It began there. Now it spreads outward, swallowing everything in waves. Soon, the entire village will be gone. Her heart pounded. Then we stop it at the source. Aga's eyes met hers. "That's suicide." Naya's hands trembled, but her voice was firm. "So is waiting." That evening, they returned to the house. It seemed alive in a way it never had before. Its windows glowed faintly with pale light. Its roof groaned as though breathing. The ticking was louder, rolling across the fields like thunder. As they stepped inside, the air shifted. The furniture was gone. The walls stretched taller. It was no longer a house but a labyrinth of halls and stairways that twisted in impossible angles. At the center, they found the chamber of clocks once more. But it was no longer silent. The clock spun violently, hands moving backward and forward at once, glass shattering, gears grinding. Time itself was breaking apart. The shadow figure stood in the middle, larger than before, its mask glowing. "You return again. Yet still you do not understand." Naya clenched her fists. "Stop this. Leave them alone." The figure tilted its head. "They are not gone. They are within me. Preserved. Forever." Aga's face twisted in horror. "You mean trapped?" "Saved," the figure corrected. "Time spares no one. But I keep them. Suspended. Eternal." Naya shook her head violently. "That's not saving. That's stealing." The ticking roared, the walls vibrating. The figure extended its hand. "And soon, you will join them. All bonds must end. Not love that failed, but time that destroys." The chamber convulsed. Floors cracked. Clocks rained from above, shattering on the ground. Aga grabbed Naya's arm, pulling her toward the exit. But the door was gone, swallowed by the walls. They were trapped. The figure loomed closer, shadows stretching across the floor like grasping hands. Naya's mind raced. If the house was feeding on time, then perhaps it could be starved. "Aga!" she shouted over the ticking. "The clocks. Smash them." Without hesitation, Aga grabbed a fallen pendulum and hurled it at the nearest clock. Glass exploded. The ticking faltered for an instant. Hope surged. Naya followed, swinging a lantern into another clock. It shattered, sparks flying. The shadow shrieked, its mask cracking slightly. "You cannot break time." But still they struck. One by one, the clocks shattered. Each blow dimmed the chamber, weakened the whispers. The figure roared, its body unraveling into smoke. And then, silence. When the last clock broke, the chamber collapsed. Naya and Aga found themselves outside the house once more, gasping for breath. Behind them, the house sagged inward. Its roof fell, its walls crumbled. Within moments, the cursed structure was nothing but ash and silence. The ticking was gone. For the first time in days, the night was still. But as Naya turned to Aga, relief in her chest, her heart froze. He was older again. His hair now streaked with white, his face lined with age. The curse hadn't vanished entirely. It had taken from him, piece by piece. And Naya knew with cold certainty, this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The storm raged on as Aga and Naya stood inside the decaying house, their breath shallow, their eyes fixed on the cursed clock that had haunted them since their youth. The hands of the clock trembled, though no wind touched it, and the voice returned, darker, louder, as though the house itself was speaking. Not love that failed, but time that destroys. Naya clutched her chest, her face pale. Aga. It's the same voice. The same one we heard when we were children. Do you remember? It never left me. Aga nodded, his throat dry. I remember. I thought it was just our imagination. But this, he glanced at the clock, its glass cracked, its surface bleeding shadows. This thing has been watching us. All these years. Suddenly, the doors of the house slammed shut. The sound echoed like a scream. The storm outside grew violent, lightning flashing through broken windows, illuminating the truth written across the walls in faded letters. Promises broken will feed the clock. Time devours all. Aga's mind reeled. It was never about love being wrong. It was about time. Time waited for us to falter, to fail each other. And now it's taking us. Naya fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. We wasted it, Aga. All the years apart. I wanted to tell you, but time kept stealing my chances. Aga knelt beside her, holding her trembling hands. No. Don't blame yourself. It was me too. I thought chasing my dreams would bring me back to you with something more to give. But time never waited. The clock struck midnight. Its chime was unlike any sound they had ever heard. Deafening, suffocating, filled with despair. With each chime, shadows grew taller, surrounding them like figures of the past. Villagers who once vanished, lovers who never reunited, faces twisted in grief. The cursed house was not merely haunted, it was a prison of lost time. Aga, Naya whispered, her voice fragile. What if this is where our story ends? Not because of us, but because of time itself. Aga shook his head, desperation burning in his eyes. No, I won't let time destroy us. Not again. If we can't escape it, then let's fight it. Together. As the final chime echoed, Aga stood, pulling Naya with him. He grabbed a shard of wood from the broken floor and hurled it at the cursed clock. The glass shattered, splinters flying across the room. The shadows shrieked, their voices twisting in agony. For a moment, silence fell. The storm outside ceased, the air grew still. It seemed as if they had broken the curse. But then, the clock's hands moved on their own, faster and faster, spinning wildly. The shards of glass floated into the air, reassembling into a jagged reflection. Not of a clock, but of their own faces, older, broken, marked by sorrow. The voice returned, now inside their minds. You cannot destroy time. You can only surrender to it. The floor beneath them cracked. Darkness poured out, swallowing the room. Aga pulled Naya into his arms, holding her tight. If this is the end, he whispered, then let me say it now. I've always loved you. From the first day, until this last second. Naya sobbed into his chest. I love you too. It was never love that was wrong. It was always time. The shadows surged, wrapping around them. Their bodies dissolved into light. Two souls embraced as they vanished into the abyss. When the villagers found the house days later, they discovered nothing. No bodies, no sign of life. Only the clock, ticking once more, its hands reset to midnight. And if one listened closely, beneath the ticking, faint whispers could be heard. Not love that failed, but time that destroyed. Legends spread across the town. Some say Aga and Naya were cursed to wander as shadows in the house of lost time. Others believed their souls had finally become one, free from the chains of hours and years. But for those who dared pass the old house at midnight, they sometimes saw two figures standing by the window, holding hands, smiling through the darkness. A reminder that love itself was never wrong. It was only time that destroyed.